mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, where I watch shit so you don't have to. And today I'm here to talk about episode 2 of HBO's new series, Scenes from a Marriage, entitled Poli. That's P-O-L-I. It's titled Poli because that is apparently the name of Mira's new man that she claims to have fallen in love with. Well, I'm not going to say claims because that kind of suggests that I think she's lying, but, that she says that she's fallen in love with. And fuck, man, what a brutal episode to watch. This was really hard. Like, if you're married and you're feeling okay in your marriage, this is going to make you wonder if your marriage is okay. And if you're not doing okay in your marriage, this is going to make you feel even worse and it's going to hit too close to home. So either way, this is a really, really brutal episode to watch. This was really hard. And man, I was literally feeling anxiety, like that butterflies feeling in your stomach when you're nervous. I was literally feeling like that because I'm like, how bad is this going to be? Because like you can't help but, me as a married man to put myself in that situation. Like, what would this feel like for me? And like hearing him ask things like, like for details on their first encounter, like, oh my gosh, like I can't even imagine, like, what are you going to hear? Like, and I'm sitting like, what am I going to hear? Like, what is she going to say to him? Like, cause like in this moment, I am Jonathan and I'm trying to think like, wow, how would I be reacting in this situation? And it's hard, man. Like, wow, what a great job. Cause that was really fucking hard to watch. So the episode, well, before I actually even get started, I want to say, instead of kind of like going through this, like, okay, here's what happened, here's what happened, here's what happened, here's what I think about it. I'm just going to talk about the things that I found the most interesting about the episode. So I have my notes over here to the side. I'm going to glance over at them. I'm going to talk about the things that I thought were interesting, just because like there's so much that if I chose to, I could break down or talk about in regards to this episode. And this should end up being an hour long, and nobody wants that, including me. So starting off, I said last week that I wondered if they were going to open every episode with this kind of like one of the actors arriving on set to kind of like give you that real feeling, that authenticity, and that behind the scenes look. And they did that with Oscar this episode. We see Oscar arriving on set, and I really enjoy that. I like seeing that behind the scenes stuff, like what it looks like on the set, and I love how they smoothly transition into the start of the episode. So I hope they do that with all 5 episodes. I don't know if they're going to back and forth between Jessica and Oscar, if they're going to have other people arriving on set, but I like that they open that way. I think that's really cool, and I enjoy seeing that. So getting into the things that I want to talk about specifically. The first thing, we open the episode with Jonathan. He's putting Ava to bed. He comes downstairs. You see on the, I don't know if you guys are paying this close attention, but I like to be able to know where I am at all times, me as the viewer, in relation to what I'm watching. So when he came down into the kitchen, whatever time that was, well, I'm not saying whatever time it was, I knew what time it was because I looked for it. I saw the time on the microwave, and it was 12:52 in the morning. Well, 12:52 a.m., which I could presume because it was dark, as opposed to 12:52 p.m. So he comes downstairs at 1 o'clock in the morning, and he's eating, some pasta, and he had just told Ava that Mira wasn't going to be back until the next day, but she comes in at 1 o'clock. And it made me wonder, especially given the direction that this took, right? It made me wonder if she came home purposely at a time when she expected him to be asleep so that she wouldn't have to have this conversation until maybe the morning. And she could kind of be like, okay, here's the situation. I'm dipping out. Boom, bags out, gone. Whereas opposed to what actually happened, where she ended up having the conversation at nighttime, then they had to sleep through that and then get up and resume it again. And, we know what happened. So I thought that was an interesting choice by both the writers and by Mira. It's not something that's confirmed, but it's just something that I was wondering, because that seemed like an odd time to come back. And she says, I came back tonight because I had to talk to you, but I didn't know if that meant like she intended on, like, if he was in bed, as he probably should have been, would she have woken him up and told him this? I don't think so. So I think it was more like she wanted to come home, sleep there without having the conversation, and then wake up and have the conversation. But that's me reading a lot into things. My next point, I wonder how long it's been since the abortion. I believe there was a reference to a few months or a couple of months. And I know that at another point, Mira says that she's been kind of like looking for a way out of the marriage for the last 8 months. So that kind of like, again, I like to know where I am, right? Where am I in this timeline? So if she says she's been looking for a way out for 8 months. She mentions the abortion as, and this was, again, a brutal scene. She mentions the abortion as a way in the context of, I felt like if we had this kid, I wouldn't have been able to leave. Like, wow, like, fuck. But that lets me know that the abortion was beyond the 8 months, because she had already been trying to, not beyond the 8 months, that makes it sound like it was longer than 8 months, but within the last 8 months, because, you know, she was wanting to leave over the last 8 months, and the abortion was done to help facilitate that. So it's been, I don't know, it's been less than 8 months since the abortion, but how long has it been? And I'm curious about that, just because, you know, he brings up the abortion at some point. It makes me wonder if he thinks that the abortion is part of the reason why this is happening, which I don't believe it to be, but I would like to know how long ago that was, because I want to know, like, did we have 3 or 4 months of him thinking things were fine and the things not being fine? So I thought that was an interesting question as well. Next thing, at one point we see her changing clothes. I think it was it was either the morning or it was that same night. And she has marks on her back, and I don't know, and she goes to quickly hide them. And it made me wonder are we supposed to look at those as like rough sex scratches or something like that? Because to me, they looked way too big for that. And it made me wonder what kind of sex is she having with this guy, or if that was something different. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but it looked to me like it was those marks were much too big for just like back scratching or something like that. But yeah, I was curious about that too. Now to get into like some of the more the heavier stuff that we saw in this episode. It's wild to me how the nature of their conversation escalates, and how Mira talks about it so casually. And what really, I guess, I don't want to say bothers me about it, but what I think is kind of like the big issue in this episode is that from her perspective, she's like, I have to go now or I'm not going to go. And I'm going to leave for 3 months. I'm going to go to Tel Aviv. I'm going to be with Poli, and I need to make this happen right now or it's not going to happen. So I need to lay out all my grievances with my husband on the table right now. And then from Jonathan's perspective, it's like, where is any of this coming from? What happened? Why haven't you told me that you were having issues before? She's like, how did you not know? And that was really tough to watch, man. Like, I keep saying tough to watch, but she says all these things so casually, and these are like big, heavy hitting things. Like, I'm seeing someone, I'm in love with someone, not, I think I want to be with him. I'm going to Tel Aviv for him for him and with him for 3 months. What about Ava? There was something else that was a part of that was like soul crushing. She says she's gonna go to Tel Aviv for 3 months. I can't remember the other thing. There was another thing that she said that was just wild to me. And she said something else at the end that I do remember, but in that conversation, she said something, and I was just like, wow, like, I don't even understand how he's handling this right now. And they did a great job of that, because there was a portion of that where she's talking and she's laying out all this info. Like, I'm in love with this guy. I remember the other thing. He said something like, is this still a thing? And she's like, yeah. And then she says, he says something like, is it going to continue to be a thing? And then she paused and she goes, and she just nodded like, yeah, it is. And again, like, crazy to think like this isn't even a conversation where we're talking about our problems. This is a I'm leaving you conversation that's for him completely out of the blue and not even up for discussion. And like that was just crazy to me. But they show a good portion of her talking is shot from behind her into his face, and the look of simultaneous like sadness but also confusion. Man, Oscar Isaac crushed that. He had a couple of moments that he really crushed in this episode, but yeah, that was a wild situation, and I can't. Again, it was really hard to watch, because I'm sitting there like how would I handle this? Like, what would this feel like? And you can't help but feel what he would feel, because you might be liable to be blindsided like that, and then blindsided again from a perspective of like, this is all news to me, but it's not necessarily because it hasn't been happening. It's because you just were oblivious to it. But then also from her side, why didn't you say anything? It's been 8 months. Maybe if you had said something after 1 month, maybe you guys could have worked it out and everything could have got back to how it used to be and everything would have been fine. But she didn't say anything for 8 months. And then all of a sudden it's like, boom, I'm out. And he's like, where is this coming from? So, yeah, crazy stuff. Oh, my next point was the work that he did with his facial expressions and juggling these looks of shock and disbelief with like confusion. He even says like, I don't know what's going on right now. How calmly he handled it. Like at portions. Obviously, there were times where he flipped out a little bit, but especially at the beginning when the whole conversation starts in the kitchen. That whole kitchen scene, by the way, like not the kitchen scene, the bedroom scene. That felt like it went on for like 45 minutes of uncomfortable conversation. What a great scene. And what a great job by the writers and the showrunners here. Because that was torturous. Like that was 45 minutes of like, it wasn't literally 45 minutes, but it felt like 45 minutes of just like, I never want this to happen to me in my entire life. And how could I avoid this ever happening? Like you watch that scene and you're going to go kiss your wife. I fucking promise you that. The next thing that I wanted to point out or raise as a question. This episode clearly was meant, I think, to paint Oscar Isaac's character, Jonathan, in a sympathetic way. He's completely blindsided here. He's handling things fairly calmly when he's being hit with, like, life-altering statements being presented as if, like they're talking about dinner. Like, yeah, I love this guy, and I'm going to Tel Aviv. And then, like, what she says for 3 months, I like, my jaw hit the floor. And then he's doing the same thing, kind of just looking like he's processing, like, did she say 3 months? And he says something like, what about Ava? Yada, yada, yada. But they're painting him as sympathetic, I think, at the moment. And I don't think that's how this show is going to go. And Jonathan was, like I talked about last week, he kind of came off as kind of like a little bit of a prick, a little self-centered. He seemed to like kind of be like overbearing, and she seemed kind of just like a doormat, just kind of like, yeah, okay, like very agreeable, letting him just, I don't say walk all over, because I don't even think it was purposeful. I just think he has like a strong personality. She had grown tired of it. She had clearly, now in retrospect, we know she was already checked out of the marriage at this point. How blindsided he must have been, even though we see that he was like, oh, okay, maybe Jonathan's kind of a dick. But with 3 episodes left, I'm wondering if we're going to have an episode that's going to make him look significantly less sympathetic. Like, if we're going to see, like, maybe, like, next episode is almost like a flashback to the last 8 months, over the course of the last 8 months, and we see what his behavior was like and how it could have driven her to do what she did. And I think that, I think we need that at some point. I don't want to come out of this looking like Jessica Chastain's character, Mira, is the bad guy, and that Jonathan is like this helpless man victim. Like, I want to see some balance here. Like, I need to see him come to that realization. Like, I didn't realize I was doing all those fucked up things for 8 months. Or even if he doesn't come to that conclusion, for us to look at it and go, okay, she doesn't look as impulsive and mean, quite frankly, overall, as she did in this episode, because now we get to see what happened over time that caused her to end up in that position. I really want to see that, and I kind of need to see it, because I don't want this to be a one-sided thing where it's just like, Jonathan's the victim and Mira's the asshole who just ran all over him. So, especially given, like, again, Jessica Chastain is doing an incredible job. I think the best example, and I think this is my next point. It's not the next point, but it's one of the last two. She did a great job of showing uncertainty. Like, she wants to leave, and she's very vocal about that, and she's very sure about that. But you can tell in those moments, like when he starts coughing, the asthma, and she's almost kind of like, you could tell she's kind of like, oh, I can't leave. Like she feels like she has to stay for that, and you see her grappling with that. She's like, no, I have to go. Like, there's a point like she slams the inhaler down. It's like, I gotta go. And you could tell in that moment she was thinking like, can I leave him like this? He's like literally like not breathing. Like, can I leave him like this? And to think how sure you must be of that decision, and how much you are checked out of that marriage. If you could see him in that moment struggling to breathe, you're just like, here's your inhaler, I'm getting the fuck out of here. Like, that's crazy to me. Not crazy, but like that was crazy to see, like crazy in the sense of like wow, that was some wild shit to see. Jonathan asking for specifics on how they first met and what happened in that meeting was, again, as I've been saying all episode, very tough to watch. Tough to watch is probably going to be my catchphrase for the entirety of covering this series, by the way. But inviting that level of pain and those levels of details, again, it's tough because from my perspective, I'm sitting here like, I'm Jonathan. If I were to ask these questions, what am I going to hear? And then he's asking these questions and I'm like, what is she going to say? Like, and then like my mind's going like, okay, what, like, is she going to say something completely wild? This is going to like completely devastate me as pseudo Jonathan here, trying to be the husband in this, playing the husband role in this dynamic. Like, is she going to say something that's going to crush me just as the viewer? And then like just thinking like, okay, well, like how would that feel to Jonathan, aka how would it feel to me if it happened in that situation? And she says like, why would you want to hear that? And I don't know. He has to see a picture. He's asking questions about the guy, and oh man, it was it was rough. And again, like I said, him asking for those details, it kind of comes along with the fact that he was blindsided, because from his perspective, he's like, okay, this guy, like, who is this guy? Like, where'd he come from? I think if he had some sort of suspicion, maybe he wouldn't have those questions, or maybe he wouldn't even care. So, yeah, that was something else. So, those are all the thoughts that I kind of like main takeaways that I took from this episode. Again, I thought it was a great episode. It triggered very real feelings of nervousness and apprehension in me, just as a married man, seeing somebody go through something that I would not want to go through, and then putting myself in that situation. Like, how would I respond to this? What would I do here? And yeah, it was tough to watch. So I should put that as the episode description. Episode 2, tough to watch. But yeah, I've heard about episode 3. I hear episode 3 is supposed to be incredible. I read Alan Sepinwall's review of this series. Well, I don't want to say I read it because I didn't want to get spoiled, but I skimmed it. And he said that episode 3 was one of the best episodes of television he's seen this year. And I'm like, better than this one? So looks like we're in for quite a ride on episode 3. So I'll see you guys then next week. Peace.